Hello, everyone. I'm just going to ask you all to take your seats so we can get moving. This is a very full room. Thank you all for being here. It is so wonderful to be able to gather everyone together once again. It's been a long time since we've done this. Those of you who have always attended the DBA's annual luncheon know that there hasn't been one for a few years. We're not the only ones doing this for the first time in a long time. Because it's a full room, I apologize for anyone that had any seating mishaps. We've hopefully found a seat for everyone. I didn't expect this to be standing room only, but obviously a topic that everyone's very interested in. My name is Puneeta McBryan. For those of you I haven't met, I'm the Executive Director of the Edmonton Downtown Business Association. I want to begin by acknowledging the traditional land on which we are gathered today, which is Treaty 6 territory. Diverse Indigenous peoples and their ancestors have been on this land for centuries, including the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Nakota Sioux, Métis, and Inuit people. The vast majority of us here in this room are settlers, and I'd like us all to think about what that means as we have this conversation today, what that means for our relationship with this land, for our relationship with its Indigenous peoples, and what that means for how we approach things like land use and development and economic opportunities as we think about the future of our downtown. I don't want to say too much right now because we have a panel discussion and we're doing this a bit backwards, so our moderator is actually about to introduce me, so just bear with us here. I wanted to be the one to welcome you all. And I first want to welcome and thank all of our elected representatives who are here. We have so many joining us. I don't want to miss anyone, but I'm gonna try and get everyone. My sincerest apologies if I miss anyone. I know a bunch have shown up, and we're so excited to have you. So MLA David Shepherd, MLA Janice Irwin, MLA Rocky Pancholi, City Councillor Jennifer Rice, Councillor Ann Stevenson, Councillor Joanne Wright, I believe is here, Councillor Jans, I saw, Councillor Tim Cartmel. Hopefully I haven't missed anyone. Councillor Karen Tang! Yes, I got them all. And Councillor Karen Principe is here also. Thank you all so much for being here. I honestly, I don't even have the words to express how grateful we are to see the support from both the provincial and municipal governments. We also have folks from the constituency office for Minister Boissonneau here. Thank you for being here. And guests from the mayor's office as well. Thank you so much for being here. Apologies for that long welcome, but obviously very important folks in the room with us today. I have to thank my staff team. Again, we're getting back to doing things in person again, and it was quite a ride to get to this event today. So a huge thank you, particularly to Jessica Peverett, who's our Partnerships and Events Coordinator, for pulling together this wonderful day today. And to thank our sponsors who made this event possible. So to the Chamber of Commerce, thank you for being our presenting sponsor. Very much could not have done this without their support. To Edmonton International Airport for your support, and to our very generous host, the JW Marriott. Lastly, I want to thank all of you for being here today, for being invested in our downtown. I know a lot of you share my optimism, aggressive optimism, some would describe it as, for the future of our downtown and the opportunity that we have ahead of us. But I know a lot of you are here today, and a lot of you are moving through your lives and your business downtown with very serious concerns about the state of our downtown and what the future looks like, both for our downtown and for our city as a result. I think you all know this, but if you don't, I share those concerns. The EDBA shares those concerns. But I know I speak for our board. I know I speak for our partners. I know I speak for the Downtown Recovery Coalition, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on, when I say that we can hold that optimism, we can hold the truth of how much we've accomplished over the past 2 years, how much support we've received from the City of Edmonton with investments like a residential construction incentive grant program, the Downtown Vibrancy Grant, how much support we've had from the federal government, and all of the progress we've made. and also know that there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot that's left to be addressed, and we're going to cover all of that today. So thank you all again for being here. I'm going to turn it over to our actual host and moderator today, the very generous Tara McCarthy. You all know her voice, even if you don't know her face. She is the co-host of CBC Edmonton AM, and we are very happy to have her. Just kidding. Bye. First, I'm going to introduce my good friend and our very generous partner, Alex Haritsiu, who is Director of Strategy and External Relations at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. And I'm sorry for forgetting about you, Alex.
Thank you, Puneeta. And let me just say, how lucky we are to have such a strong and astute leader like you leading our Downtown Edmonton Business Association. We owe a lot of gratitude and dedication, so thank you. So, as Puneeta mentioned, I'm the Director of Strategy and External Affairs at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of our CEO and our board, who I don't know if any are in the room today, it's a pleasure for us to sponsor this event today. The Chamber maintains the distinction of being one of the longest running and most influential business organizations in Canada and has contributed to the prosperity of the Edmonton region for over 130 years. The Chamber has 3 key tenets: to advocate, educate, and connect. We engage regularly with all orders of government, municipal, provincial, and federal, to impact policies, regulations, and practices that support a strong business environment. Today is incredibly important because we have a tendency to get a little insular in Edmonton. We're not the first city to face issues in the downtown core, and we won't be the last. We really encourage everyone to listen with an open mind and to the different perspectives that will be shared today. There's no doubt Edmonton is facing challenges, but let's hear what is and what isn't working in downtowns across Canada and collectively focus on the best approaches that we can execute here. I want to congratulate the Edmonton Downtown Business Association. You truly are the orchestra conductor at the center of all the work we're doing to revitalize downtown. Thank you.
Hello. This time I'm supposed to come up. As previously mentioned, my name is Tara McCarthy, and I'm one of the co-hosts of Edmonton AM on CBC Radio 1. It's my pleasure to be with you all here today while we talk about imagining downtown through fresh eyes. So Puneeta already stole the thunder, but I'm going to introduce her again anyways. Puneeta McBryan, welcome to the stage, is the Executive Director of the Edmonton Downtown Business Association. She currently sits on the City of Edmonton's Downtown Vibrancy Committee, and also the Government of Alberta's Edmonton Metropolitan Region Economic Recovery Working Group. Whew. And was named one of Edify Magazine's top 40 under 40 in 2021 for her, quote, tireless promotion of our city's core. Before this, she spent her career as a business strategist and consultant, specializing in marketing, branding, also PR for a variety of public and private sector clients. And in her past life, she also served on the board of directors for the Advertising Club of Edmonton, including a term as president, and led the marketing and communications for successful political campaigns at both the municipal and federal levels. Welcome, Puneeta. And next, I'd like to welcome to the stage Kate Fenske. Kate is CEO of the Downtown Winnipeg BIZ, B-I-Z, that stands for Business Improvement Zone, and she's been doing that since 2018. Kate provides strategic direction and a voice for the 1,000 businesses operating in downtown Winnipeg. She also sits on the boards of the International Downtown Association and the Winnipeg Downtown Community Safety Partnership, and served 4 years on the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce board. Kate has worked as a journalist at major local and national media outlets and as a strategic communications and public relations advisor for various private and public sector organizations. Welcome, Kate. And last but definitely not least, Nolan Marshall. Nolan is the new-ish president and CEO of the Downtown Vancouver Business Improvement Association. Prior to starting his Canadian adventure last year, in his career, Nolan served in senior leadership and executive roles at the New Orleans Business Alliance, Downtown Development District of New Orleans, Uptown Dallas Public Improvement District, and 2 universities as well. Nolan has also served as a board member or director of numerous community organizations and was appointed by 2 different mayors to serve as the chair of the New Orleans Planning Commission. Welcome, Nolan. So as you can tell, this discussion is about to get interesting. We got a lot of experience on this stage. And yesterday, these 3 were touring all over Edmonton. And so I thought that would be a great place to start and just take a little look at what impressions were made. Now, Kate, you visited Edmonton before, but what was it like for you to see it maybe through fresh-ish eyes yesterday as you toured around the city?
Yeah, it was fantastic. And for those who don't know, I'm not going to say that she has a bunch of free time, but you have an excellent tour guide here in Puneeta. And so it was really fantastic. I was back here in August, actually, for a little summer vacation. Came out with some girlfriends in our kayaks and just got to explore downtown. So, but it was really cool to understand what is coming, where the opportunities are, what the plans are, and what the challenges are. And I think we all have the same challenges across Canada, and no one has it figured out yet, but you've got a great leader here that's doing some great work.
Awesome, and we'll get into
I did not pay her to say that.
No, I've seen there's been no backroom dealing. And we'll talk a little bit more about challenges as the discussion continues. Now, Nolan, I mentioned that you're newer to your Canadian adventure now. This is your first time in Edmonton. What were some of your impressions?
So this is my first time in a Canadian city outside of British Columbia. So I had no expectations coming to Edmonton whatsoever.
Just that rent might be a bit cheaper. That's about it.
Puneeta asked me if I would come, and when Puneeta asked, I show up. I was in New York last week at the World City Conference and talking to some colleagues back in Vancouver and telling them about this trip that I was going to make to Edmonton. And I went into it with no expectations, and they lowered my expectations for what I would see in Edmonton. And I'll be honest with you, Edmonton exceeded my expectations yesterday. It is an incredibly walkable city with a lot of opportunity ahead of it and a lot of good things going on. I've had the opportunity over the last 3 years, 2+ years, to spend at least a day in New Orleans, Houston, Dallas, Albuquerque, Chicago, Seattle, Portland, Salt Lake City, New York, multiple cities during the pandemic. And Edmonton is not dissimilar to a lot of the other cities across North America, but what's exciting is the track that you're on to see some of the opportunities that I saw yesterday.
Was there anything in particular that stood out that maybe you weren't expecting to see here?
Well, I always look for opportunities in a city. You always expect to encounter challenges, and I tell people the one thing that surprised me a bit my first day walking into the office in downtown Vancouver was the amount of open drug use that I saw in downtown Vancouver. You just don't see that in many other cities in North America. And so when people lowered my expectations for Edmonton, I expected to see street disorder like they describe in San Francisco or Seattle or Portland or some of the other U.S. cities, or like we see in some parts, particularly on the east side of Hastings Street in Vancouver. But I didn't see any of that. I know there are issues, but I think what was surprising was that I didn't see what I've seen in so many other cities. I think just when you're a placemaker, when you're an economic developer, you look at the canvas and you try to see where there are opportunities. And I think the number of opportunities that exist alongside areas where you've already seen development, this area next to the arena, this beautiful hotel, the neon sign museum. I think I'm gonna go stand out in front of it later with my shoes and my tie on. But you have a great mix of where you've seized on the opportunity that's been presented to you and where there's opportunity yet to be seized.
Now, Puneeta, I know you live here, but as you went on this tour with colleagues that we're looking at it maybe differently than you do on a regular basis. Did anything stand out to you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I missed one thank you when I started off. I have to thank these two for agreeing to come here. I reached out of the blue and said, I have a bit of a different idea. What if you both come to Edmonton and help us fix our downtown? So, so grateful that these two took the 2 days to do that. One of the ideas, one of the reasons I had the idea to do this is because the city of Regina did a cross-country tour of cities as they were looking at their downtown. So our counterpart at Downtown Regina brought their mayor and city councilor, or a whole bunch of city councilors and some other folks, and they went to Halifax, and they went to Ottawa, and they came to Edmonton, I think a couple other cities. And so I gave them a tour of our downtown, and that was so cool to see our downtown through their eyes. Granted, I know most Edmontonians don't want us comparing ourselves to Regina, but seeing our city and our downtown through their eyes is a whole different lens on our city. Like, we see stuff every day, we take things for granted. Obviously, we have challenges every day. Sometimes our most difficult experiences sort of stand out as our most prominent experiences. But I wanted to try that again with really seasoned city builders, and again with Nolan's background and experience, like having been through so many cities and spent so much time doing this work, and same with Kate and their work with the International Downtown Association. I was a little nervous, and I promise I did not hide any of what I thought were our warts. We went almost everywhere. We walked for 3 hours through downtown. I will say it was quieter than we were expecting it to be. I think all of us were. It was, even for like a Wednesday, like it was still a reminder that, yep, downtown's still pretty quiet. This is tough. But also, yeah, we didn't see as many of the safety challenges and disorder challenges that I know we all feel. I'm playing tour guide and kind of keeping that in my mind, and it felt also pretty good. It was quiet, but it felt positive, and it just goes to show that what your daily experience looks like downtown is dramatically different from day to day and hour to hour. But I felt really good by the end of the walk, and I wasn't sure that I was going to feel good. So maybe these two were being generous.
Each of your organizations have a kinship, but there's obviously things that you're doing differently in each of the cities. Let's talk a little bit about what you do, what your organization is focused on, your mandate a bit. Kate?
Yeah, so for us in downtown Winnipeg, we actually have quite a large team. We're almost 50 staff, which I know compared to Edmonton, I think has 6. But we still don't have enough. So that includes our frontline, our clean team. We are out there. We used to have safety patrols downtown, and what we were finding is what we were doing was not moving the needle. It was helping, there was visible presence, but it wasn't enough. And so for us, safety is, again, our number one concern. And I think what was really important, I think my mic's coming in and out here.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah, can everyone hear okay? Maybe we'll try and get a handheld mic.
Okay. I'm going to pass it over to my buddy to the left.
Sure. Nolan, why don't you?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what specifically you're doing in your role.
Sure, and I'll build on a point that Kate was making. Our budget, we're fortunate in downtown Vancouver. Our budget is $6 million. It's one of the larger budgets in Canada. When I worked for the Downtown Development District in New Orleans, our budget was $10 million. When I worked for Uptown Dallas, we had 1 square mile. Our budget was $5 million. Typically, our budgets at BIAs or business improvement districts, though, are a small fraction of what the municipal, provincial, or state budget is for a lot of the issues that we address, whether that be economic development, housing, dealing with social disorder, even engaging in placemaking or events and activations. Our budget is such a small percentage of what any city or municipality spends addressing those issues. But we try to be laser focused on how do we create an experience for people in downtown that is a holistic, enjoyable experience. And what that means to me is we have to make sure that there are quality jobs in downtown. We have to make sure that there are quality places to live, and we have to make sure that when people walk down the street that they feel safe. And so we do that in a lot of different ways. We do that through events, activations, public art. We do that through employing our clean team and our safety ambassadors. We do that through employing our economic development staff to try to make connections with skills training programs, to advocate for additional affordable housing. Those are some of the levers and tools that we use in our organization.
And Kate, did you want to pick up where you left off?
Sure. I think, chatting about safety, through the last 2.5 years, it was not the greatest concern in downtown Winnipeg because our downtown emptied out. Right. So people weren't seeing the challenges and the issues. And I think that was one thing that was really surprising for me. I thought Winnipeg was quiet. And when we were walking around yesterday in Edmonton, I was just like, ooh, okay, our comeback is happening a little bit quicker, which was surprising to me. And we started talking about residential population. And I think that is so critical. For us, we have 18,000 people living in downtown Winnipeg. That's grown from about 14,000 since 2014. So it is happening. There is development happening. But when we're talking about safety, the big thing for us is the more people downtown, the safer it is, the safer it feels. And so I think that is, for us, a big focus. The police service has a role, and they need to be able to do their job. For us, it is about trying to bring people back. At the same time, in Winnipeg, we have the largest urban Indigenous population in Canada. There is trauma, residential school survivors. Our transit shelters in Winnipeg have turned into homes in the last 2 years. And now, as people are starting to come back downtown, there's this friction happening of, what is this infrastructure for? How do we take care of our most vulnerable people? And so we're having to completely rethink and do things differently. And I think that's the opportunity that we actually have in our downtowns. What we've been doing for the last several decades, you can joke that downtowns have been, we've been trying to revitalize them since the 50s. And so we're back there. But I think if we can rethink about who our downtown serves, what are our downtowns here for and who are they here for, there's a huge opportunity in terms of reimagining our downtowns. So for us in Winnipeg, we know we don't expect everyone to come back 5 days a week. That's not going to happen. We're actually okay with that. So there's a big shift from our central business district to a social gathering district. We need more people in the evenings and the weekends, so that's a big focus for us. As I said, we used to have safety patrols. We've now created a new nonprofit organization called the Downtown Community Safety Partnership that is supported both by our city, the province, the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service, the Winnipeg Police Service, and the private sector, all coming together to do things differently. It's about connecting people with resources when they need it, but also having that visible presence. And so I think for us, where we're seeing the opportunity in Winnipeg, it's when everyone comes to the table together. Every single issue that a city has is solvable. You just have to decide who you're working with to solve it, and you have to commit to doing it.
Puneeta, when you started in your role, we were talking about this a little bit yesterday, things were a bit different, and the DBA here at Edmonton has shifted and changed. Can you tell us a bit about that and what you're focusing on now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think most people here probably know this. I started in this role in December of 2020. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, okay. And downtown was bleak in December of 2020. And we were in the office every day from the time I started. The team had been there the whole time through COVID. We were fortunate to each have private offices, and so social distancing was possible. And so we have seen every stage of what downtown has felt like through all of the pandemic, through the recovery. And I know there's certain industries that have been here with us the whole time. Shout out to the commercial real estate industry. I know you've been here the whole time. And many others too, but not a lot actually. And through all of that, it has been constant reimagining and reinvention and building on what the DBA's mandate here was traditionally. And so I think in years past, the DBA functioned a lot more like a business association. We always had great programs and services. We always did Downtown Dining Week. We always did our Downtown Proud social enterprise program for some light litter pickup here and there. But the level of service delivery and problem solving and on the ground work that we are now doing and that we've continued to do and continue to build on and gotten more and more funding from both the city and the federal governments and now even the province to do that has been just like, to keep up with the pace has been a lot. But there's this really big conversation happening right now about who does what, who is responsible for what. And I'm so grateful to learning from my colleagues in other cities to figure out there's so many different models. And there's some cities where, you know, the municipality is really responsible for solving everything. And there's some jurisdictions where, you know, like in Winnipeg, the municipality is very hands-off and the downtown biz kind of does it all. So it's been fascinating to learn how we're solving these problems in different cities across North America. So our annual budget is $1.4 million, $1.5 million for next year, and we almost doubled our budget last year in grant funding alone. And that's not sustainable. Like that level of output, Downtown Spark and our Al Fresco Summer Series on 104th Street and all of these things, we're so thrilled to be able to offer this, and it's provided so much of the vibrancy we need. But there are very big questions about how sustainable that is as grant funding goes away and COVID recovery funding goes away and what the new normal looks like. So those are the very big conversations that our board is having right now, and that we as a team are trying to figure out where do we make the biggest impact and where do we really lean on the city and other levels of government to do what they need to do.
I work downtown at Edmonton City Centre. That's where our studios are located. So I know what it looks like for me. It's where I go 5 days a week. But for a lot of people, they maybe don't live downtown, they don't work downtown. It brings up the question, why do downtowns matter? I know it's a big question, but as we start to see pockets where they've got all the amenities they need, what does downtown mean? Nolan, do you want to tackle that first?
Sure, and then if I can, I want to go back to some of the conversation around public safety, because it's what I spend 60% of my time talking to our members about. It's what I know our colleagues across North America spend the majority of our time talking to our members about. But let me answer this other question this way. When I did economic development work, we would say that economic development matters because people matter. It's the only reason why we're doing economic development. It's because the people who need employment, the people who benefit from it, they matter. Diverse groups of people have helped build downtowns for decades. And then downtowns are the ecosystems for economic development. And so that circle of that ecosystem that supports people, the real human element in a community, is why downtowns matter. When you think about how cities are judged, people don't often think about the suburbs. Young professionals, the greatest asset in business attraction or retention, aren't judging the community that they want to live in by the quality of their suburbs. They're thinking about the amenities and the attractiveness of their downtown. And so we continue to support downtowns because people matter, because economic development matters, because people matter, and people help build better downtowns. I find on public safety, and I spent 3 years working for Loyola University after Hurricane Katrina, working on public safety and criminal justice policy. And I find that often in our roles as Business Improvement Association leaders or bid leaders, or even across communities, we often talk about public safety and we treat the symptoms, but we don't often solve the problem. So we've been treating the symptoms, which is what we see: street disorder, broken windows, people sleeping in doorways, rampant drug use throughout all of our communities, but we don't spend a lot of time actually solving the issue. I have a really good friend who works in the addiction treatment space, and when I was describing what we see in Vancouver on East Hastings Street, he told me, you know, Nolan, the only difference between the people that I see in my addiction treatment centers, and he sees people who are professionals who work in white-collar jobs. He said the only difference between the people I see and the people you see on the street are that the people I see have a connection to work and they have a connection to home. And that really resonated with me. The data also supports that the strongest correlation between increases in street disorder and homelessness is between housing cost and unemployment. And so as a Business Improvement Association leader, one of the things that I'm trying to get laser focused in on, and we have outreach workers, we have an ambassador team, we have a clean team, we're launching a grant program to help our small businesses, our retailers who are dealing with storefront disruptions, whether that be broken glass or graffiti. We have all these problems, all these tools to address the symptoms. But what I'm trying to get laser focused on, and Vancouver has 70,000 plus people living in our downtown core. We have a really great, objectively economic environment. But what I'm trying to get laser focused on is, can we create even more housing in our downtown core? Can we create more housing across the city so that we start to solve some of the problem, some of the levers that lead to the street disorder we see? Can we take those opportunity or disconnected youth, as we would call them when I worked in the education space, those youth who are 18 to 24 years old, who aren't connected to employment or schools, and can we give them skills training and job training so that they can help build in the construction industry, so that they can work in the service industry, the retail industry, and the hospitality industry, where if I'm not talking to members about public safety issues, I'm talking to them about access to labor, right? So can I pull a single lever or two in housing and in employment that'll help solve multiple problems that I have in my community? Because treating the symptoms is what will burn through your $1.5 million very quickly, and it'll constantly burn through it. And even if you get to 5 million or 6 million or 10 million, if we're not actually solving the problem, we're going to be doing this and having these conversations for the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 30 years.
Well, and Kate, I wonder if you want to jump in here, because you've been working with the nonprofit sector to address these sorts of things that Nolan's referencing in Winnipeg.
Yeah, downtown Winnipeg Biz has been around for over 30 years, and we were addressing the symptoms for 30 years, and it wasn't working. So we had to think about it differently. And for us, the increased coordination has been so critical. That was one of the beautiful things that actually came out of the pandemic, is the connections between business, social service agencies, nonprofits, public-private sector, government. We really kind of said, okay, this isn't the city we want. We need to do better. We need to do more. And I think when you think about, why downtowns matter, I've heard from a former mayor that we had actually up to speak in Winnipeg, because I find, at least, I don't know, in Winnipeg we need external validation that we're doing the right things. So I think it's really helpful. So I can say you have my external validation that downtown Edmonton is awesome. I'm not a jealous person, but I was going, oh, I wish we had that, and oh, I would love a big urban park that is coming for you. But when we look at when we're trying to figure this out, we know we can't do it alone. And so that is absolutely critical. And to Nolan's point, addressing the symptoms is not going to change anything. We know downtowns that have a higher residential population fared a lot better. Their recovery is happening much more quickly. So for us, that is where our big effort and our focus is going to be. Also, the public safety issue, safety is not even anywhere in our mandate. But we can't do all of the events. We can invite new businesses to set up shop here if safety is a concern. So again, it's about bringing all of the partners together. And my ask in Winnipeg to everybody, to the chamber community, and it was interesting, I'm not sure if it's similar here, but in Winnipeg, the Chamber of Commerce, downtown is their #1 priority. So we've really built up that partnership, and we're working very closely. And downtowns are so critical to a city's ecosystem. It is where business, arts, culture, all come together. You don't have that anywhere else. So it's about creating those unique experiences, showing those off. And I think that's where you want all of Edmontonians to have great pride in their downtown. When you look at it, there is such opportunities that we saw so many different things that was like, oh, if I had that, I would do this. And if I had that, I would do that. Just looking at the river valley, our river floods over and over and over again. And the grain barons back in the late 1800s bought up all of our river property, so we don't have that public access. You have so many great gems in Edmonton, and I think when everyone does come together, like the partnerships that you have here, that's where you can start addressing the real problems if you commit to doing it.
And Puneeta, maybe this is a good segue into those partnerships that do exist and how that's working and not working to address safety.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer the why downtown matters question too.
Please.
Because everything that these two said, and here I think, we keep looking to our neighbors at the south and what happened when their downtown property values destabilized, and what that does for the tax base all across the whole city. Our city council is heading into a very difficult budget cycle, and when you look at the math of why it's so difficult, a big part of the reason is the massive devaluation that COVID caused in downtown properties. And we are at serious risk of not recovering that value and therefore not having a viable city budget. So not to get so down into the weeds of why downtowns matter, but like the dollars and cents of it is like our city does not work as it is currently built without a really strong, thriving, and prosperous downtown. And yeah, it's also the first thing investors see. It's also the first thing that tourists see. Like it is, you know, even as we're building 15-minute communities, we have a new city plan that's really exciting, the pathway of how we get to 2 million people. We still need, even as we move away from being this central business district where we rely on office workers, more than ever, we need downtown to be that complete community, the hub where everything is, and like the living room, the foyer for our city. It's, I guess maybe like Gateway Boulevard is the foyer, but downtown is the living room. Like this is what people see and need to feel good about in order to feel good about our city and its economic vitality. But yeah, to pull together some of those threads, like I love everything you both just said, and we have so many to contextualize it locally for everyone, like some of the stuff that both of them were talking about. When we talk about some of the economic development work in terms of jobs and skills training and connecting people to lift them out of poverty, like we have End Poverty Edmonton here, which is an agency that is structured to essentially do that. And so they've got some great programs to try and create those pathways out of poverty into meaningful employment. We have our social enterprise program, and it's Higher Good with Boyle Street Community Services. So when you see our teams out there sweeping and picking up litter and soon to be power washing more frequently, which I know everyone's really excited about, those are all folks who are very recently unhoused, who are on a pathway to being housed and often recovery from addiction. So those types of programs all come together to do some of that. And then we also have REACH Edmonton, which is our Council for Safer Communities, which when I hear about the Community Safety Partnership in Winnipeg, like I think some of these agencies and some of these ingredients that we have locally are sort of on the right track. Like those structures exist, but to your point, like I don't know that we're all coming to the table, and we're certainly not coordinating funding, and we're certainly not coordinating service delivery to the level that we need to actually make a difference on things like housing and mental health care and supportive housing and, you know, all the things that we know that we need. And especially that economic development piece, which is a big one that I think is missing too often from the conversation here.
Yeah, one of the things I just want to add is we have to get laser focused on a few things, right? Like especially when we can't, the city, the municipal government, the provincial government has a larger mandate and responsibility than we could ever take on as BIAs or business improvement districts. But yet all of the issues happen in our areas. So we see all of it, but we can't necessarily do all of it. And it's not a part, to Kate's point, she doesn't have public safety in her mandate at all, but we still have to address it. I think it's critical as we think about what we do going forward that we get laser focused on a couple of things, because especially when you have, whether you have 6 staff or you have 50 staff, you can't address climate change, you can't address access to childcare, you can't address affordable housing, you can't address public safety, you can't address homelessness being different from public safety being different from property crime, right? Like those are different divisions in the police department that deal with those things. So we can't lump them all together as one thing as a BIA and try to solve them. Just get laser focused as a community on what you expect your BIA to do, and then who is responsible for all of the rest of it, and hold each accountable for what you assign them to do.
What are some of the biggest challenges? I mean, it's already been coming out in the discussion, but that you see as commonalities that you're each facing. Puneeta, what do you feel, speaking with these colleagues, spending time with them over the last day or two, you're noticing those connections?
Yeah, I think we knew that Winnipeg and Edmonton are facing a lot of similar challenges. What was more surprising to me is that the number one thing that Nolan hears from his board members and his members is public safety, social disorder, like all of these same things that we're hearing all the time from our business community. And I think we we look at a city like Vancouver and we feel like they've got it all figured out. The residential density is there. It's Vancouver. But we got to spend a week there a couple of weeks ago. A bunch of us from Edmonton were there for the International Downtown Association conference, and did like a community policing walking tour, did a whole bunch of sessions centered around safety and all these same issues that we were all talking about all the time here, and very similar challenges. So I thought that was fascinating, but also really good evidence that everything we've been saying about how residential density is really the key to the future for our downtown, that's demonstrated, that it feels so much better being in downtown Vancouver because 140,000 people live there. Like, what a difference that makes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think, in terms of the similarities, I do compare Winnipeg and Edmonton very close together, because I think when we look at, we were talking about this earlier, when you have a very cold city in the winter, that's where arts culture really thrives, because you're making music, you're making art, and so our cities really have souls, is what I find. You don't feel that in every city you go to, and I felt that both times I've come this year, is that there's a soul here. And so I think you have a lot that you can build off of, and I think about when we're talking about where are we going to focus and really put our efforts in. We're in a civic election right now. We're going to the poll October 26th. And I continually say that it's not always favorable, but I can't say, come to Winnipeg, we don't have any potholes. Like, that is not going to be what we market. That is not going to be what is going to attract talent or investment to our city. And everyone's talking about roads and crime, roads and crime, roads and crime. That is not what's going to put us on the map in terms of attracting that investment. And so I think what's really, we were talking about this over dinner the other night, is what do you want to be known for? What do you want to hang your hat on and say, we are proud of this in Edmonton? And for us, I think for us in Winnipeg, it really is. It comes down to people, and we want to build our city for people. And if your downtown is strong, you have the money to fix the potholes. You just don't have to talk about it all the time. So when we look at the investment, Winnipeg is huge. We don't have mountains or ocean. We can spread out as far as we want to go, which is one of the things we can't keep. We can't afford to do it. We can't maintain the roads we have, except they keep talking about expanding more roads. And so the challenge for us is showing that our downtown is actually 300 blocks. It's quite large, but it makes up less than 1% of the total land of our city. But it's generating 17 and 14% of commercial and business tax. It comes down to basic math. If you invest more and you have a strong downtown, you're going to attract tourism investment. You're going to get people, young people, you want to keep them here. You want to get them moving. To Nolan's point, you need to have an urban, vibrant core. But you can generate more money to do the things that support services and amenities everywhere else in your city that matters to all Edmontonians. I think that's really critical for us.
Yeah, I think what I've been personally working on for the last 17 plus years. New Orleans is home. I'm from New Orleans. I purchased my first home in New Orleans in 2003. I ran a small business. And then August of 2005, the entire city was underwater. And so from September of 2005, I've been working on how do you create resilient communities. In New Orleans, we experienced subsequent hurricanes. There was a BP oil spill, which really was one of the largest oil spills in history, which damaged the whole coast and the economy. We're going through our first pandemic, but perhaps not our last pandemic. All of our communities have to begin to become more resilient. Whether it's climate change, whether it's increase in natural disasters because of that, whether it is the next pandemic. What we are seeing over the course of the last 20 years is that there is something, whether it's Hurricane Sandy, which they talked about when I was in New York at the World City Conference, or the wildfires on the West Coast, there is something that is ahead of all of our communities. And part of our job is certainly to do events and activations and public art to make sure that we do the business attraction work and the business retention work to keep the businesses that are here, but bring in the next wave of businesses, whether they be in the tech industry or the biotech industry. But we also have to figure out what's going to make our communities resilient, because we're going to go through something else again. And in Vancouver, it was the fact that we had so much housing. That's why our small businesses were able to survive. So was housing a piece of that resiliency? Housing in your downtown core is green because people walk to work, but it's also economical for municipalities to maintain the infrastructure if they have a larger percentage of the residents living in a single area. And so I think that's the overriding, what are we trying to accomplish? It's resiliency. How can Edmonton be more resilient? One of the things that I was really excited about is you have this mall that I was able to get a charger for my laptop when it blew up on me while I was waiting for my flight. But it is such a...
Shout out to the source.
Shout out to the source. But you have this mall that is not dissimilar to malls across North America that have experienced their better days. But the way that it was built with the potential to add residential. It has the potential to have street-facing retail and restaurants. It could be its own center of gravity for downtown. And you have something 2 blocks away here already happening. You have something else, an urban park that's planned with increased residential, another 2 or 3 blocks away. So you have these opportunities to start to really invest in your downtown core, not for something that you're going to see the benefit from 6 months from now or 18 months from now, which is often how the political cycle focuses us on things, but something that you will be building a more resilient community for the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And that's how I hope that this community judges your work, Puneeta, not in 6-month, 18-month, 24-month cycles, but what can they help you accomplish? What can we help you accomplish over the next 5, 10, 15 years so that Edmonton is a more resilient place, so that when the next disaster hits, whether it's a pandemic or something else, there are people here, there's a nucleus here, the community is resilient, so that you can address the problems in a way that it doesn't feel like an existential crisis to the community every time one of these things happens.
I will say quickly, like, this is not just me, and I think that's what's something that's unique about Edmonton too, is we really have the city at the table in a meaningful way. Like, we have this new director of downtown vibrancy role, like hearing what it's like in Winnipeg, where it sounds like it's a lot more of this, like we're getting to a place here where we're doing this work together, and it's not like the BIA against everyone else by any means, and so I think that's a huge asset too, like that we're thinking about economic development long-term for downtown. We're thinking about, you know, how many more residents can we add in the next 5, 10 years, and what's the impact that that's gonna have. So we're quite fortunate on that front from what I've learned from my colleagues in other cities.
With that idea of resiliency in mind, what's not working right now, no matter how much you've tried it, whether it's been for 17 years or 5 months or 2 years? Kate, what's not working?
So one of our biggest challenges, I talked a little bit about it, is we're not taking care in Winnipeg of what we already have. So we have crumbling sidewalks, we have empty tree grates, and so like when I'm walking around and I'm just going, oh, and I'm taking photos and I'm putting it into the 311 service, and our stack of 311 calls is massive. And so what I think, we did major consultations because our city initially was not leading a recovery strategy for our downtown. And so I put out a Hail Mary call to the Chamber of Commerce, our Downtown Development Agency, our Winnipeg Arts Council, Tourism Winnipeg, Economic Development Winnipeg, and we started building it together. The city did come to the table. Now they're seeing, oh, this is what needs to happen. They're investing $10 million in capital infrastructure projects that we haven't seen any investment in our downtown like that in the same way. We have city parks in our downtown that have just been completely neglected. It's tired. And so when we talked with 110 individuals last year, 90 different organizations, we asked, what is it that you want in your downtown? It's not complicated. This isn't rocket science. They wanted some more trees. They wanted just take care of the basics, make it a little cleaner, make it look decent, make it a place that is enjoyable to walk around. So for us, we're actually really going back to the basics. We're not out of recovery yet. We know that. But at the same time, while we're focused on recovery and making sure the existing businesses that have survived through the pandemic can stay, we're going to put a big focus on business attraction the residential component, and just back to basics. We do need to take care of what we have. And if you want more people to live downtown, and not everyone's going to live downtown, that's not the expectation. It would be weird. We couldn't fit everyone in our downtown. So you can't have a suburb of nothing. And it's not about urban versus suburban, it's about how it all works together. But you do want everyone in your city to be proud of your downtown and to have different options. When we talk about affordable housing, it's affordable for who, right? So we really want to focus on that mixed use. So that's a big focus for us when we're looking at what is possible. But at the same time, to resilient cities, we can't invite people to be downtown, to live downtown, if it's 10 degrees hotter in a concrete jungle. So right now, we need to be thinking about putting in shade trees and green space. What are those basic amenities that just people everywhere want?
And accessibility.
Accessibility, absolutely. How you get around your downtown, whether you walk, you bike, you drive your car, you take your transit, making sure you can get in, out, around, whatever mode you choose is really important. So for us, we're going back to the basics, and we're just focused on what is important to people, what is the quality of life in our city. And if we focus on the quality of life for people, I think we can get there.
I'm going to jump in just because I could have said almost word for word pretty much everything that Kate just said. So we're in a similar boat, and I think you all know that in our downtown. Like, it is so many of the small things, and we've had really great engagement from the city manager on this, great engagement from Councillor Ann Stevenson. We're doing yet another walking tour where we're going to take everyone around and we're going to point out, why is this random construction signage just hanging out everywhere? And, why is this sidewalk looking like this? And these things that shouldn't be massive, but that is the stuff that is not working today. We're banging our heads against the wall on 311, and our poor BIA infrastructure liaison at the city hears from us, I don't know how many times in a week. We have to get proactive about thinking about the overall experience, thinking about a cohesive, functional, attractive experience across downtown. And so that's where, with the city, again, the engagement is there, but we're not there yet. And I want to really quickly, I alluded to the Downtown Recovery Coalition earlier. That's something new for us. It's an advocacy group that is separate from the BIA. And to your point, you threw out that Hail Mary to the Chamber and all these different groups. And I would say our business community here is more organized than we have ever been around downtown. UDI, our Urban Development Institute, named downtown as one of their strategic priorities. Alex, who you met earlier from the Chamber of Commerce, is chairing that Downtown Recovery Coalition. We have a ton of engagement and focus from the business community on this across the city. Suburban and urban business alike are focused on this. And so I'm hoping that that's a really key ingredient to get us where we need to be.
Yeah, I think for me, I'll focus on this because it's been a through line for my career. So I spent 3 years working at one university on public safety and criminal justice policy. Then I went across the street to work at Tulane University on public education policy, because those two things are related. And whether it was in New Orleans, where New Orleans once again became the leader in the United States for its homicide rate, similar to Chicago and Youngstown, Ohio, and Detroit, there was always this population of men ages 16 to 24 that in those cities, they had access to guns and they were killing people. In a lot of the cities on the Pacific Northwest and across Canada, they have access to drugs and they're killing themselves. And so one of the things that I am trying to be laser focused on is creating opportunities for those 16 to 24-year-olds to transition into industries that are impactful industries for them. There was a report that came out just this week that said outside of Alberta, congratulations Alberta, every other province in the country of Canada doesn't have enough labor in the construction industry to meet housing goals. So if housing is the other thing that I think is super important, finding a way to connect those people to work is something that hasn't been working in the last 30 years, 40 years in North America. But we have an opportunity to because of this housing need to build things, because of the aging population and the missing labor force in retail, hospitality, and the service industry, to create programs that connect those people to meaningful work. And it's primarily men ages 16 to 24. We have an outreach team at Downtown Vancouver that goes out and tries to connect people living on the street to resources in the community. And what they've reported back to us is sometimes there are resources in the community for women and children. There are no resources in the community for who they're primarily seeing, which is men ages 30 to 40. And so when they're 30 to 40 and they've been living on the street and they have an addiction, we then have the opportunity, there are lots of programs that will teach them how to pressure wash and pick up trash and do that when they're at that point. But that doesn't necessarily transition them back into meaningful employment, whereas economic developers, we also have a gap and we need them. So what hasn't worked is this ability to connect those people 18, sometimes 16 to 24 to work so that they're not the people on the street that my outreach workers and my ambassadors are seeing shooting up in front of a business or sleeping in an alleyway. All that being said, I think we frame the conversation around downtowns as if downtowns are as bad as they've ever been and as if nothing is working. And I just don't buy that. We've all been through a global pandemic that had an economic, social impact on us as people, but on the places like downtowns that we congregate. And I don't buy that we are not where we should be when the expectation was that 70 to 80% of all of our businesses would close downtown. That's what they were writing at the beginning of the pandemic, that downtowns would cease to exist the way that they were before. Everyone was wanting to move to downtowns. That would no longer happen. And we haven't seen that, but we are still in recovery mode. And some of us are further along than others, but it's not doom and gloom for downtowns. And so I want us to recognize sort of where we are, that it's been 2 years since we all entered an unprecedented, in the last 100 years, global pandemic, and that we are in the nature of recovery where we're supposed to be in recovery, and that it takes time, but that we are on the right track. Some of the projects that you pointed out to me, where we're sitting here, we're on the right track. We also have to give ourselves some grace to know that we're just not there yet.
Surprisingly, I think that's the first time I've heard unprecedented in a while. I heard that word all the time for 2 years. With that in mind, COVID had an impact. We can't deny that, like you were just saying. Does that mean you need to tackle moving forward differently than maybe you were looking at it at the end of 2019? I'm sure you're all nodding, yes. Kate, you're nodding emphatically. I think you need to go.
Absolutely. Growing up as a kid, I was lucky if I saw one crane in our downtown. And I was like, that's cool. 2019, there were 6. Development was happening. The momentum was there. Jets still haven't won a playoff, but we'll get there.
Well, we probably
I know. So you've got a great hockey team. But this is the thing, right? So when we look at our cities, like you've got the key pieces. You've got great arts, culture. You've got a hockey team. Nolan would say you need a basketball team, right? So we still got somewhere to go. But when we look at the opportunity and how our downtowns are going to change, and it is going to take time, for us in Winnipeg, the transformation is starting, and I am so excited. Our downtown bay closed. So it seems weird that I say I'm excited about that. We lost a massive levy that was a big part of our budget. Our downtown bay was the size of 6 Costco's. It is a huge footprint in our downtown. We also have a struggling downtown mall with major vacancies. Our ground floor vacancy rate right now is at 32%. So you'd think we're in trouble. But I don't believe that. Southern Chiefs Organization, HBC transferred that property to Southern Chiefs Organization, and they are building affordable housing and a community space for our Indigenous population to thrive. You may have heard of our iconic corner, Portage and Main, that intersection that is still closed to pedestrians. So we've got our challenges. Manitoba Métis Federation has bought the old BMO building at one of those corners. So we are going to be leading the way in economic and social reconciliation in Winnipeg. And there is such an exciting opportunity in that. Our downtown will look different. It will be different. I think for us, if we focus on everyone coming together to do that, and I know I keep saying that over and over again, but just hearing Nolan talk about, Hurricane Katrina, in Manitoba, the flood of 1997, what were the big things that your community needed to rally around? And you did. And for us, everyone came together in that flood. So I think our opportunity now is all of us can come together around our downtowns to decide we're going to do this as a community, to look at things differently, to reimagine our downtowns, because the opportunity is there. I'm really excited. I'm going to try and cut our vacancy rate in half in 2 years. So you have to get bold, you have to be ambitious, you have to find the partners that are going to support you in that. You just need to decide to do it, because like I said, every challenge we have is solvable. You just have to decide if you're going to solve it. So that's for us what we're looking in terms of the transformation and the opportunities here. And when I was walking around Edmonton yesterday, seeing the river valley, seeing this beautiful urban park and the opportunities for commerce to be there, for those unique experiences, those unique businesses. People are still going to shop online. Not everyone's going to be working downtown 5 days a week. That is all okay. But what are those unique experiences? What are your entrepreneurs, those innovation that is going to happen in your city? You just need to provide the right playing field for them to thrive.
I don't really feel like I need to say anything after that.
I love.
Next time any of you want to call me an aggressive optimist, just remember Kate from Winnipeg. No, but it's so true. I see. We've said this a few times in a few different ways, but we know that downtowns, as the central business district in Edmonton, it was 60,000 office workers we had reliably downtown every day. We know that is changing, and the really difficult, uncomfortable truth that we're all sitting in right now is that the situation we're in today, with people in the office sort of 3 days a week, still not anywhere where we need to be. We have to start getting used to calling it some kind of a new normal and start thinking really seriously about what comes next. What are the new types of businesses that we're attracting into downtown? Who are the types of organizations that don't currently lease space downtown that could be leasing space downtown? Whether they're nonprofits, whether they're other types of organizations, entertainment venues rather than retailers. Like, we have to think really creatively and really strategically about, and really honestly about what has changed and what's not going to go back to normal. And some of it will come back. Like, I have high hopes for where our retail trajectory is going to go. It has to go hand in hand with that residential population. So that's why the residential population is priority one. But yeah, when we really zoom out and we think about the big picture, I think we've got a ton of opportunity ahead of us.
I just love numbers, and Kate was talking about her retail vacancy, and in Vancouver, our retail vacancy has increased 300%, but it's still a third of what your retail vacancy is, and yet we're still having the same conversations about what's going on with retail, what do we do with retail? Our office vacancy is at 9% right now, which most markets in North America would climb all over themselves for 9% office vacancy. But we're still having conversations around what's going on, what's the future of office, even as developers are filing paperwork to build more office. The concern that I have is that it's sort of like the theme song in the Lego movie, where everybody is either going around going, everything is awesome, or everybody is going around saying everything sucks, right? But we're not thinking enough about where we are now and what is the future of the city that we want to build in the next 10 years. It's all hyperbole one way or the other. And regardless of what the numbers say, we're all having the same conversation about where we are in this moment. And so the thing that I would ask each of you to do is to start to think about, treating the symptoms in the moment, but what do we want to solve in the next 10 years?
I was asked to moderate this panel because I work downtown and haven't left my office the entire pandemic. So that's why, because I'm not creating a vacancy. We only have a few minutes left, about 10, being a little generous. Let's talk about what's working. You touched on it right there, Nolan. What are we looking at moving forward? What are the big ideas? Where do we go from here?
Oh, we're all looking at me for the big
sorry.
ideas.
I'm just constantly turned this way.
Sure, I think, so the things that are really exciting is that if you can identify the little things and knock those out really quickly, right? So there were a couple of little things, like a hoarding bylaw that says if you're going to have hoarding around a construction site, or if you're going to have fencing around a construction site, it must look like this, and it must be uniform and standard, so that as people start to come back downtown and are walking around, they don't just see fencing around a site where it looks like nothing is happening. That's a very easy, quick win. City council, you can create a new bylaw and say, hey, developers, you've got to pay for hoarding. It's a very small percentage of their pro forma to increase the quality of their hoarding, right? That's just one example, but like, get really excited about the little things and start stringing those babies together and knock them out of the park. That's cool too. But then like the long-term stuff of, can we start to tie things together? And I'm a broken record, but I don't mind because I started saying laser focused. And so I'm really excited about the housing that you're building. But can we then say, okay, we're gonna build this housing, can we create some skills training programs tied to construction, right? Or if we have new retailers or new businesses that want public incentives, whether those be tips or whatever they may be, to come into downtown, can we start to tie those to opportunities for people in the community so that they can work on those projects? And it could just be a little small percentage of saying, hey, you got to hire local people who've been through this program. You can do it even in the tech industry. Can we create a program in the tech industry that teaches these people, younger people, how to code? I got to stop saying these people. They're my nephews and nieces and all those. But can you teach younger people how to code so that as you're attracting tech businesses in, they can work with those businesses? If it's, can you teach people urban farming so that as you're growing your cannabis industry, right? Like once they're 21, like they can start to work in that industry, or vertical farming, or whatever it may be. But start to sort of tie programming together so that as you get wins, they're amplified throughout the community and you're pulling multiple levers with a single win. That's the sort of the big thing. But then knock out all these smaller things and just get, you've got to, in economic development, we would always say we've got to start to play with pace. I'm a huge basketball fan, and Steve Nash's Phoenix Suns back in the day used to play with extreme pace. It was 7 seconds or less. And in economic development, we would talk about the Phoenix Suns and, Canada boy wanting to be like Steve Nash, and just play with pace. Can we knock wins out quickly when they're easy wins? And that's what I think we've got to do.
And I think you need to celebrate those wins too. We saw some really big wins on our tour yesterday. Just some of the murals in the parks and those renovations that are happening and the revitalizations. If our city council and our city decided to purchase a bunch of surface parking lots in our city and turn it into an urban park, I would kind of go, all right, I'm good. We're good. I don't need to do this work and go do something else. So, I mean, it's celebrate what you have, and what you already are doing is so critical. But like Nolan said, those little things, those are the things that also matter. So if you can walk around your downtown and look at it like you're a visitor, like you're a tourist, and are there things? And for us, we have real challenges just around keeping our streets and our sidewalks clean. We know, like, we've got sand in the winter and trying to clean that up. We've got, 8 different pieces of equipment that our crews are clearing the snow. We are sweeping the sand. We are cleaning the transit shelters. There's been a lot that's actually been offloaded to our organization. So when you're looking around, it's like, okay, what part can we play in this? So we're really going to be working with our business community. They do this in Europe. Can everyone go out at 9 a.m. and sweep your storefront? Right? Like, so it is about everyone contributing to this. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there. And I think if you're focused on just what does the environment look like, and when you're walking around and seeing those little opportunities, some of those murals that you've done are just so fantastic. And it's those little things that will go so far and make such a difference. And then what are going to be your big, bold moves? What is that park going to look like? Who is it serving? How are you going to attract people there? You can create the most beautiful green space, but if it's not thought about how it's going to be used, or who's using it, or what commerce is going to happen in that space, you just have a really pretty park. So I think there's some big opportunities there for some big, bold moves as well.
Puneeta, would you like the final word?
I get the final word. Thank you both so much. You gave us, I hope, a lot of really important perspective. Certainly, you've done that for me over the past year. And every time we connect, it's fascinating to hear which challenges we're all facing together and what everyone else is focusing on. And I'm really inspired by how much Nolan's organization is focusing on economic development. I think we've got fantastic active agencies here in Edmonton, but they're kind of focused on big stuff. And I see us and our partners at the city working more and more on the fine grain stuff. Like, I was really inspired at the IDA conference by, out of Baltimore, Boost, which is the Black-owned and occupied storefront tenancy program. Heard from the Black-owned market shortly after we learned about that. And so there's these really interesting potential partnerships and opportunities to increase the diversity and inclusion of our downtown, to incubate and train up and develop the next generation of downtown retailers and business owners that maybe don't have access to capital right now to open a business, but we can get them there with a little bit of help. We had a bit of success with our brick and mortar retail pop-up series we did with vignettes last year, learned a lot of lessons along the way, but we're trying out these ideas to get us back in the right direction on things like bringing retail back. The city had a massive win, I think, last year with the residential construction incentive. We have 10 projects under construction that would not be getting built if it wasn't for that. I think it was like $20 million that the city spent, which will pay for itself in no time in terms of the big picture. And Warehouse Park is, I forget to be as excited as I should be about that park until I see it through the eyes of other people. And so these two did that for me again yesterday. And we stood there, staring at what is now just this sea of gravel parking lots that has been there for as long as I've lived in Edmonton. And it is so exciting to think about what that is going to do as a catalyst for residential development, as a catalyst for bringing people back in general. I visited Rainbow Park, which is downtown Vancouver's newest park, and I just thought it was the most incredible example of a durable, fun for all ages. There's a CRU there, which Nolan, for the record, city folks, Nolan says that
You have to have a CRU.
we have to have a commercial unit.
Urban parks don't work without a cafe or restaurant as well as they could. So, thank you.
Non-negotiable. We have so much to be excited for. I'm so glad we decided to do this and to bring our guests to take a look at our downtown through fresh eyes, and hope we were able to give everyone some ideas and some perspective, and look forward to working with all of you on this stuff as we move ahead.
To all the panelists. And special thanks, Nolan, for sticking around. I know we beat your hockey team last night. Sorry, not sorry. I'd like to welcome to the stage Tom Ruth with Edmonton International Airport, YEG, YEG, all those names. Welcome Tom to the stage, please.
Anyway, I want to say a couple things. I've got about 3 minutes, and they'll laugh because yesterday we had lunch together, and I said I tried to talk in 2 or 3 minute bites, but I'm going to cover off a lot of ground. One is that I've been here for 9 years. I've lived in Asia, Europe, all over North America, and we have an awesome, great city. I'm so glad that we're having this discussion, and I think one of the biggest things that I get out of this is how much everybody cares to make it better. So that is just great. Why did we sponsor this? And we had the privilege of sponsoring our wonderful panelists that came in. It's because we have a symbiotic relationship with downtown Edmonton, our region, but in particular downtown Edmonton. We're a $3.2 billion economic generator, and 2/3 of the people that work at the airport live in the city of Edmonton. So it's very important to us. It's also why I'm really pleased that Council's even going to be looking at a direct bus service between the two, between downtown and the airport, which is great. So YEG, why are we talking about YEG? And if you look at your downtown bags that are in front of you, you'll have a towel in there that talks about YEG. And the long history of this is that YEG is the call sign for Edmonton International Airport. It's been around for well over half a century. And about 15 years ago, we just started calling ourselves EIA. And it worked really well for us, but everybody else is still using YEG. And so we said, well, we're going to go back to YEG. We're going to embrace YEG. And so we're embracing YEG and proud of our history with EIA, but YEG, you'll be hearing a lot more about it from now on in terms of how we talk about ourselves. And I also want to say we're back. We actually have more nonstop flights now than we did pre-COVID. We have 55, we had 53 before COVID. Yeah. We've set record cargo in the last 2 years, record cargo numbers. We're in double-digit growth again this year, so all that is fantastic. So we're really, really happy to do that. And my last comment is something that's just now out in the press, probably in the last hour or so. As you might remember that I announced in April that I was going to be stepping down at the end of this year, and our board has been actively involved in a search for my successor. And so effective at the end of this year, our new CEO is actually somebody that is from the Edmonton region. He's lived most of his life in the Edmonton region. He happens to have worked at our airport for the last 15 years as our Vice President of Air Service and Business Development. He's been responsible a lot for our Airport City Sustainability Campus. And I wish he was here today, but he's busy on this announcement. But Myron Keene will be our new CEO. That's it.
Yeah, way to hit the time marker, Tom. You did a great job. I didn't know if I was going to have to pull out the giant cane or something. And I've been asking to change the morning show to Yeggs and Bacon for years, but they just won't let me do it. Thank you again, everyone, for coming. Thanks again to the Edmonton Downtown Business Association for organizing this. I know the staff, small but mighty staff, have worked very hard to make this happen. Thanks again to all the panelists. It's been my pleasure to be here. Don't forget to take home the bags that you found on your seats. Those are for you. It wasn't just left behind here, so please take those with you. And the panelists will be around. I'm sure you're happy to answer any questions that anyone might have stemming from this discussion. But thanks so much, everyone.
And